Hey guys, it's Tinker Taylor here today, and today I am bringing you a different kind of video. So today we are actually going to look at how T.O.O.L Mod works. This mod has honestly been one of the things that has improved my building skills and my creativity a bit. And I use it alongside Better Build By, which are both by Twisted Mexi. This is actually the first mod I've ever downloaded with these two together. And I've never had a problem with Twisted Mexi, so definitely one I recommend. But yes, today I'm going to hopefully show you how to use it. So when you first download it, you are going to need to load into the game, obviously, and to bring it up, you need to click Shift T. So Shift T will bring it up. Now it'll bring up this little box here. In the past, it's been locked to certain spots, so up the top, to the right, to the left, or the bottom. But now we have the ability to move it wherever we like by just clicking and dragging. I like to keep it to the side here, just nice and out of the way. It means that I can still have a look at these things up here. I want to look at the price of the lot, or the dimensions, or anything like that, or anything like the challenges and traits. I can still look at it, but it keeps it out of the way. It means I can still search here and have the little section pop up of things that I'm searching for, and it's just nice and out of the way. Now, to begin with T.O.O.L, you simply left click an item to select it. Now this means whatever you pick on the side here, whatever option you pick, it will apply to this object and this object only. If you click on an object and you exit T.O.O.L, which you do by clicking Shift T again, it will remain selected. So if you click Shift T again, it'll pop up. To get rid of that, you simply click on the item again, and now when you leave T.O.O.L, it's no longer selected. So that is how to select a item. Now, if you would like to collect multiple items, select multiple items, apologies. Now, if you would like to select multiple items, you would click on the first one and then hold Alt and click on the rest, left clicking, and now you have multiple items selected. They don't have to be the same item. If you'd like to add this item to the lot, you simply hold Alt and left click. You can hold Alt and left click on whatever you'd like, and it will be joined in, and they will all be highlighted green to show you have selected them all. And to unselect everything, you can either click on one item and click on it again, or you can go to Options and click Toggle Group, and it will remove all items that you've selected. You are now no longer selecting anything. This can be really handy when you have multiple items selected and you don't want to click on anything. Now, there are multiple objects, multiple things you can do with the objects as seen down this side. You can move objects, which simply moves them along axes. You can elevate objects, which rises them up and down. You can rotate objects in any dimension, or you can scale objects up and down to be bigger or smaller than you wish them to be. So now we're going to have a look at move. This is the first of all the options. So to, again, select an item, you simply just left click and it is selected. And then click on move, and this scale, this will appear. You need to have the X at the top and the Y to your right. This is because if you want to move an object to the right, you use positive numbers. If you want to move an object to the left, you use negative numbers. This is very much like a grid you would see in math class. If you want to move something up, it's a positive number. If you would like to move something down, it's a negative number. This is why your X needs to be at the top and your Y needs to be to the right. So you can use the correct numbers to move it in the correct direction. So let's say I want to move the Baby Yoda to where the Y is here at this intersect. What I would do is, we're not moving the X at all, because X would move us up and down. We're staying on this line here. Think of this as 0, 0. We're not moving up. So our first number would be 0 because we're not moving up or down. However, we're moving 2 to the right, so it would be a positive 0. A positive number, sorry, a positive 2. And you can see we have now moved 2 grids spots to the left, to the right, sorry. You may have also noticed that the camera moved from this spot over here to here. We can move backwards as well, like I said, using negative numbers. Using -2 will take us back to where we were before. Now, the camera did not snap because it's within this little range here. If you do not want your camera to snap, you need to go to change settings and snap camera on move and turn that off. I have it turned on because I don't use this setting a lot and I would like to see where the object I've moved has gone to. I'm not very confident with this move function, and I do prefer to move objects in other ways, which I'll now show you. So to move this Baby Yoda 2 spots forward, this is what we were doing before with the X here and the Y along here. I moved it to this spot here. I simply can left click and the object has moved. There's no other buttons being pressed, no other keys being pressed other than the left click mouse button. Now, the reason why some people prefer to use move over the left click is because I can click wherever I like and it'll show up there. It's not necessarily going to be exactly where the move function would put it. The move function simply moves it at a set rate, whereas left clicking, I can place it anywhere. So that is how I prefer to move things, but you can see now he's not exactly on the line anymore. So to fix that, put him off center a little bit again. So to fix that, you hold Shift. Oh, sorry, you hold Alt, my apologies. Alt, and you left click, and you can see he is now moving ever so slightly towards where my mouse is. Now I have him lined up. I'm pretty happy with that. But I am going to show you the extent of the Alt left click, which is called the gravity pull. If I want him to move in this direction over here, all I have to do is click Alt and left click. Now you'll notice as the Baby Yoda gets closer, he's going to slow down. This is because as you get closer, the gravity pull becomes much smaller. So if you would like to move him a tiny bit, let's say back to this square, back to this line right here, I would click Alt, left click, and move him. And perhaps if I want to be a little bit more finicky and precise about it, I would go a little bit closer and click until he gets to a spot where I am happy. So this is really good if you are trying to be very precise with where you're placing an object. It can be very handy to precisely place objects. This can be handy when you have multiple objects and you're trying to place them very precisely, or if you have, let's say, a specific spot where you want to place him. It's very, very handy. So that is how you can move objects. Like I said before, you can use the move using the X and Y axes, or you can simply left click or Alt left click to gravity pull towards where your mouse is. One thing to remember or to know when you are gravity pulling things, if you are trying to, let's say you have a bunch of objects on top of the counter and you're trying to gravity pull across the counter, you cannot do it. You cannot click where the counter is because it will just select that object. When you click Alt, because it registers that as an object. Whereas if you were to click near the bench, you'll see eventually that the baby Yoda will get closer. And this theoretically would be how you move things while they are on top of benches. Keep in mind, rugs are selectable, so if you are trying to gravity pull objects, you must remove the rug and then gravity pull the object, because you need to use the ground as where you're gravity pulling from. So that is the gravity pull and the move function. But now we will have a look at elevate. So with some objects, you can place them directly onto counters. However, this object is not one of them. It does not snap to the counter, which can be frustrating for people who are trying to place objects onto things such as counters or shelves, especially if you've replaced a shelf. Because in this example, I could just use the 9 key, and it sits very nicely on top of the counter. However, if you've replaced an object or like a shelf, if you've replaced a shelf, it would no longer line up. So this is where T.O.O.L Mod comes in handy. So you would select the object, click elevate, and type in a number. Now before you just start typing in random numbers, I will give you a little rundown of what each number, or what a good scale for numbers is. If I take you over here, this is the tallest wall you can get. Each line here indicates the previous heights wall, so this is the short wall, this is the medium wall, and obviously this is the highest wall. To get something to the height of a tall wall, let me bring this baby Yoda over as an example. So to get this, if you wanted to put it on top of a flat roof, let's say, for some reason you couldn't, you would click on the baby Yoda, click elevate, and put him at 3. You can see here, a 3 is the height of a short wall. I would elevate it 1 more, so each elevation is elevating from the position you've put it at. If I elevate 1 more, it'll take me to a medium height wall, and if I would elevate 1 more than that, it will take me to the height of a tall wall. So let me bring him all the way down, -5. He's back at the normal height. If you want to elevate him to medium, it is a 4. And if you want to elevate him to a full wall, it is a 5. So that is a good scale to keep in mind when you are elevating things. A short wall is a 3, a medium wall is 4, and a tall wall is 5. So if I take you over to this little woodworking item, to lift it onto the bench, it is recommended about a 1. And you can see if I drag it back using Alt left click, you can see that it sits on the bench nice and neatly. Now we can go up using 0.01, and you will see that this item jumps up ever so slightly. You have a little tiny look, there is a tiny little gap beneath it. And you can also go down, so to go down is negative. We'll go down -0.1 because that's how far we went up, and you can see it moved down slightly. So that is the elevate function. Just as a reminder, a short wall is 3, a medium wall is 4, and a tall wall is 5. So that should give you a good indication on how to use the elevate tool. It is extremely handy when you are trying to place things, like I said, on top of counters or on shelves, but I've also seen it used to elevate yarn, tiny little yarn balls that have been shrunk down, which we will talk about scale in a second, shrunk down and elevated to look like snow in a snow globe. It was very well done, then used the elevate tool to pull the yarn off the ground and place it exactly where you want. And now you did see before I did use the 9 key and 0 key to lift up and down, but it's a bit more finicky when you've placed objects, when you want to place objects in specific areas. So the elevate elevate function is very handy for that. You can also elevate groups of things. So if you hold Alt and you click on objects, like I said before, you'll click on everything. Now let's say you accidentally sunk this down into a foundation or a platform. You can always elevate it up to be above, or if you want to sink it down into a foundation or a platform, you absolutely can do that as well. But now you can see this is why we use the elevate tool. But now we will move on to the rotate tool. So the rotate tool, as it sounds, will rotate an object. You can rotate it to rotate left and right, as if you were pushing one side of the couch back and the other side forward. You can change the axis to rotate it as if you were lifting it up on one side and pushing it down on the other. And you can change it again to do it as if you were lifting it back and forward. So the way that the arch goes is the way that the object will rotate. Those are the 3 rotating axes that it will rotate on. And by combining all 3, you can rotate any object to rotate in any degree you want. I do say any object, but it does not rotate every object. If your object disappears when you rotate it or when you elevate it, that is because it is an object that cannot be rotated or elevated, unfortunately. Usually those are objects that are debug or live edit, although some plants, as I will show you later, can freak out a little bit with these settings. Now, I will show you rotating this object 90 degrees, and there you can see it's rotated 90 degrees. If I wanted to rotate it the other way, I would simply click rotate again and type in 180 to rotate it the other way. So like elevate and move the object once it has been rotated, the new number you use to rotate it will be from where it is at this very point in time. So let me rotate it -90 and you will see faces the other way, 180 faces this way. I think I clicked elevate, my apologies. Rotate it this way, there you go. Now you might be asking, what if I want to rotate multiple objects at the same time? So if I click this couch, I am going to show you another little function here real quick. If I click Shift and Alt and left click, so Shift, Alt, left click, I can duplicate an item, and you will see that it only selects the item that you have placed. So to reselect these items, I'm going to hold Alt and left click. Now we can rotate these objects. At the moment, we have this setting not selected. So rotate around center means it's going to select all objects and rotate them as one. So it's going to rotate around this one. So it'll push this one down and this one back. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I were to rotate it 90 degrees, you can see it rotated as if it's one big object. And we can rotate it back, -90. And that can be handy if you've got things facing the wrong way or if you want to try a new look. But let's say you want to have 3 couches in a row all facing one direction. But you don't want them, you want them to be facing each other. You want this one to face this one and this one faces this one. You will deselect that and now each object will rotate individually. If I type 90, you will see now the couches are in a row again, but instead of being side by side and facing one direction, they are all facing one direction in a row. Now this can be extremely helpful. Oops, that is the elevate. If you are wanting to change the look of things, or if you want to move things in certain directions, or if you want to move them individually. Now you can rotate, use the different axes. I'll show you here, rotating 15 degrees. It will rotate them all to look identical. If I take them back and rotate around center, it is going to push this one a lot further down and this one a lot further up, as if they are one object in one line. So if it's on, it takes all the objects you've selected and turns them into one and rotates them around whatever one is in the middle or whatever object is in the center. And if you turn it off, it will rotate whatever object you have, each object individually. Now you can click Control Z and it will undo what you've done within Tool, but it does not show up here because Tool is separate to the functions up here. If I undo this, you will see the baby Yoda moving around for when I have moved him, but not changing these objects rotating. So if you want to undo, be very careful which you use. If you use Control Z, it will undo Tool while this is open. If you use this one, it will undo the movements you have done without Tool. Now we will have a look at scale. So let me grab this little guy, bring him over here. Scale is extremely important. Let me duplicate him here. So at the moment you can see these two are identical, but when you change scale, it will increase or decrease the size. Now you should always check what size the object scales at already. What I mean by this is if I type in 1 and click OK, you'll see there's no difference. So the normal scale of this object is 1. Sometimes the object can be, I believe, a 2 as their normal scale, but this one is 1. And so we are going to scale him up to, let's say, a 2. And you can see he's much bigger now. Now, yes, you could use the bracket keys to scale up an object, but this object can be scaled much more finely if you were to use Tool. If I had to say 1.1, you can see he's slightly taller and slightly wider than this one here, which has not been scaled. This can be super handy if you are, like I said, with the yarn being scaled all the way down to look like snow in a snow globe, and it can be used to scale things to bigger sizes. It's extremely handy to be able to be very finicky and picky with how big or small you would like your objects to be. Now, you can scale objects at the same time. Now, this is 1 and this is 1.1. But if I scale them both up to 2, you're going to see that they're both the same size. Scale is the one where it does not reset based off of the previous number. So like elevate, when we had it at 3 and we added 1, it pushed us up to an elevation of 4. Scale is the only one where it doesn't, because it has a locked number being the scale it should be. So the locked number for this object is 1. If you click 2, I can click 2 again, it's not going to change size, because it's saying we want the scale 1 object to be at size 2. It does not add. Now, one other cool function you can do, you hold Alt again to select all 3 objects and left click, but if you click Shift Alt duplicate, you can duplicate things a lot like this. But if you, let's say you're trying to create a cinema and you want to put a lot of couches down, it can be extremely difficult and time consuming. Yes, Tool could triple your speed at this rate, but if you want to place a lot of objects down, one way to speed it up is to Shift left click and create a box around the objects you'd like to duplicate. Click on Options and click on Toggle Group. So what that does is it picks the group. It selects all the items within this box. If you wanted to deselect an item, you would hold Alt and click on it. Or if you, let's say for some reason it didn't pick up this item, you would click Alt and click it again, and it would still select all these objects. And to deselect, you simply click Toggle Group. The toggle group just means, have I selected it or have I not? Turning it on, turning it off. It's very handy for when you are wanting to click a large amount of items without having to individually click them all. It does save a lot of time. Now, to duplicate them again, it is simply Shift, Alt, left click. And now you have a second set. But let's say you want to take both. To redo the toggle box, you simply click with your holding Shift again, left click, and make a new box. Now half of it's selected and half of it's not. So when you click toggle, it's going to unselect what you've got, and then you can reselect. So let's say you don't want these anymore. You don't want these couches. You decided they're ugly and you want to pick different ones. You simply click delete group, and now the group is gone. So Control Z, I will show you again. Toggle group, oops, and delete group. But now you're left with this box. Well, to get rid of that, you simply click hide grouping box, and now it's gone. You cannot bring that grouping box back, so it doesn't matter if you click hide grouping box again, you would have to manually recreate that box. So just make sure you no longer want that box before you delete it. So that is most of what you can do. The last thing is just here in change settings, snap to terrain. So at the moment we have it off. So I'm going to select this object and I'm going to click in the terrain. And you can see the object is still at the same height and it did not climb on this terrain. However, if I click snap to terrain and I use this object, it now snaps to the terrain. So whatever height you've got it at, you can see down here, it snaps to the bottom. Up here, it snaps to whatever height I've picked up here. And that can include on the hill. So whatever height the terrain it is on, it will snap to that. Now that can be handy if you've used a lot of terrain editing and you would like to place objects on top, or if you'd like to sync them into the terrain. These settings are super handy to swap between, because if you would like to place these buttons on top, you can absolutely do that, but if you would like to put plants sort of on the edge, you absolutely can do that. And it just makes life a whole lot easier, depending on whether or not you want to snap them to the terrain or whether you do not. I usually have it off, just because I'm usually working with it inside a build, and it doesn't matter inside the build because it'll snap to whatever floor you're on regardless. And you can just use the elevate tool to lift it up or lower it down if you want to change the position it is at. Most of these other settings are simply the color of the rotation of the X and Y and changing the position of this box. But like I said before, you can manually move this box now, so that one doesn't matter so much. And then snap camera to move, I explained earlier, where if you move, it will move the camera to wherever you've snapped. Now, some things you should keep aware of, not every object is going to work. So if I use the rotate tool, you'll see that I'm trying to rotate it left and right. So I would like the tree to be at an odd angle. Let's say 100 degrees. What it did is actually made the tree really, really skinny. So yeah, like I said, not everything will work with it, and sometimes you'll end up with these odd trees. So this is the tree unrotated, this is the tree rotated. it sometimes just does that. And objects such as mirrors and windows don't really like to scale up. If I put these both at a scale of 2, you can see that the window, the actual window bit, and the mirror stays the same. Now with the window, if you take it off the wall, you'll see it looks pretty alright. There is this little weird shape to it here, weird line in it, but other than that, it still works as a window until you put it on a wall. The mirror, however, it just doesn't work. So there are some objects, mirrors and windows, that do not scale up or down, so please be aware that some objects do have mirrors in them, so when you scale them up, you will be left with this odd shape. It's the same when you scale them down. So if I pull up tool again and I scale it to 0.5, you can see that the outlines are still there of where the actual mirror and window are, where the glass bits are. So just be aware of that when you are playing around. If you did want to have a see-through bit without any frame on it, you could turn this frame extremely small, so 0.000001, and now you can't even see the frame at all. It is way too tiny to see, but you do have the outline still. The same with the mirror. If you want it without a frame, you could absolutely do that, but you must keep in mind that you can't scale them up and have them look normal. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to T.O.O.L Mod. If I've missed anything that you know about, definitely let me know below. This is definitely not 100% comprehensive, every single detail about how this works. This is just how I use it, and hopefully how you can use it as well. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to catch you guys in the next one, and I will see you then. Bye guys!